We get some breaking news at this hour. AOC caught in a fresh financial scandal. Imagine that. Good old AOC up to perhaps no good. We'll talk about these allegations. They're pretty significant, and they come on the heels of some other tough stuff for one AOC. We get some other things going on too. For example, Lamonica. You know you wanted me to say that name again, right? Lamonica McIver. I'm telling you, this woman is getting so desperate. She's come up with some crazy legal scheme, crazy legal argument to insist that her indictment be thrown out of court. But you see, she is still facing 17 years, and the legal argument is going to go nowhere. I'm going to explain. Lisa Cook, meanwhile, totally cooked. Okay, this is the woman that was on the Fed board of governors that Donald Trump decided to fire because she allegedly had two mortgages listed as her primary residence, which would be a form of mortgage fraud. Well, the whole left has come out in defense of this woman like you wouldn't believe. We're going to talk about that. Somehow it's like no big deal if you have two mortgages that are primary mortgages suddenly. I mean, who knew you could get away with such things, right? I thought no one was above the law. Oops. Oh, sorry, that was just Trump. Oh, and Democrats facing new struggles for sure. And it's no wonder why. We'll get into it. And Seth Meyers could be out at NBC, Couldn't happen to a nicer person. Welcome to the program, everyone. I am Trish Regan. Make sure you subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. Please, we are on our way to 1 million right here on the show. It's pretty darn incredible to see. Anyway, we begin today on the news of AOC. So AOC is caught in all kinds of fresh scandal here. Apparently, she decided to blow through a whole bunch of deadlines. You see, when you are a member of Congress, there are certain financial obligations that you have. You have to tell them, for example, if you have any stocks, you have to tell them how much money you have in the bank. And, they give you a parameter, and they expect that you're going to fill out the forms. Well, she blew through the first deadline. And then she blew through the second deadline. And apparently, according to a report out of the New York Post, she finally got around to telling people just exactly what she has and doesn't have, theoretically, right? Because we don't know the full story here. And the reason we don't know the full story is because we do not know what the fiance is making. The fiance, Riley Roberts. I want you to remember who we're talking about here. When I say AOC, this is the woman who's actually stumping for Ma'am Dammy, who wants to bring communism, socialism to New York City. She can't wait for that, right?
We have a choice to listen to that message that people are sending us or not. This isn't just about Mr. Mamdani as an individual. This is about the message that the people of New York City are trying to send to our party.
Yeah. I mean, fitting, because this is the same woman who decided to stiff the vendors. Remember the vendors? We're going to get into that. But first, again, going back to what we have out of the New York Post, AOC blowing past financial deadlines, the disclosure deadlines, keeping her fiance's records off of the books. Now, why is that? Why would she do that? Think about that. The fiance here is kind of a problem, if you would. The fiance, again, Riley Roberts, he's been around for 10 years, 10 whole years, all right? And for whatever reason, she is not deciding to marry him. She said she was going to marry him. I think they got engaged, right? And but he's somehow benefiting from a lot of the financial stuff, and yet he is not in the disclosures, which is kind of a problem, right? What a gal. Sandy Cortez from Westchester. Though she'd like you to think she's a whole lot tougher than she seems. Anyway, this is the story. Absentee Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez isn't just MIA in her own district. Her mandatory 2024 financial disclosure documents were also missing 4 months. Ocasio-Cortez was among lawmakers who asked for a 90-day extension when they first came back in May, and then she missed the second deadline. So what's going on? Again, what is this? Just socialism? Is this, deadlines don't apply to me? Just like, I tell everybody they should conserve energy, but I'm out there on my private jet along with Bernie Sanders, living it up as I do my Fight the Oligarchy tour. The socialist lawmaker finally filed on Wednesday. This would be a week later. So finally she gets around to it. And again, we know nothing about the boyfriend. Okay. Nothing. Remember the guy that went to the dance with her. Okay, here it is saying, notably absent from the disclosure, any sign of her partner of more than 10 years, fiance Riley Roberts. I mean, she's been under fire, don't forget, from the House Ethics Committee. They've been all concerned about Ocasio-Cortez because, she got all those goods to go to the fancy schmancy ball, the Met Gala. And she apparently didn't pay the vendors back. She stiffed some of them. And then finally it became this big, big issue. And the House Ethics Committee was like, no, AOC, you actually have to pay for this stuff. Like, it doesn't come free. And then she tried to skirt that one too by trying to say that the clothing was worth less than it was. I mean, vendors were not happy. She came under a ton of fire for that one. But again, I go back to this issue of the fiance, okay? 10 years together with him. They haven't gotten married for whatever reason. And one of the people there on the Project for Government Oversight that was interviewed by the New York Post makes this point. There is no reason Congress requires financial disclosures to include the spouses. There is a reason Congress requires financial disclosures to include the spouses of members of Congress, right? There's a reason. Because you understand that if AOC is privy to certain amounts of information, then theoretically the boyfriend could. This is why, when we talk about Nancy Pelosi and Paul Pelosi, her husband, and how they made so much money, I think we got NVIDIA earnings coming out rather soon. We'll have to talk about that. But the fact that there's so much money, right, that Nancy Pelosi's husband has made while she sits on certain committees, it's seen as a conflict. It's a conflict of interest. It's, for example, if you're an investment banker and you're in the middle of a deal and you have a spouse or a girlfriend or a family member that suddenly is trading on that deal, you know what? That's going to come back to bite you in a huge way because there's regulatory issues surrounding that. In other words, if somebody tells somebody in their inner circle about something, that would be a massive problem. So this exists within the financial industry for whatever reason. It doesn't exist to the same minutia in Washington, D.C., and I think we all know why that is, right? Because they're all trying to protect themselves and they don't want to have all these regulations. But this guy anyway, Riley Roberts, who knows what he's got going on? He could be trading, he's got his day trading account. Who the heck knows? We don't know. All we know is what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is telling us, which includes 17,000 to 81,000, big broad range in bank accounts, 17K to 81K. She owns 15,000 or owes, I should say. She doesn't own much of anything, actually, living up to the socialist reputation. But I wonder what Riley owes 15,000 to 50,000 in student loans. She has 1,000 to 15,000 in checking. She's got a little 401k, courtesy of the National Hispanic Institute that she used to work for before she became a member of Congress. She has a 401k valued at between $1,000 and $15,000, and she has less than $1,000 in her stock brokerage account. Not a very smart girl. I hope you're smarter than her. I hope you go to 76 Research. Please do me that favor. 76 Research, my company. I put it in the show notes for you. Use code word $. You can get the 76 report for $1 a month for the first 2 months. It's important to invest. AOC doesn't know that. She doesn't care. The other guy, Timmy, he doesn't invest either. Like, he has got nothing to his name, despite the fact that these people are earning $174K, for example, in Congress. That's what she has been making, and she's got nothing to show for it. Nothing to show for it, but we don't know about the boyfriend, right? Again, the fiance. So if you read this, again, this is from the New York Post. They're making the point here, the person that they interviewed, saying if spousal disclosures were not required, it would be all too easy to exploit that loophole and simply transfer any conflicted or problematic asset or financial activity into the spouse's name. Of course, duh. Like, this is actually really important. I realize, she's new and cool and she wants to not be married to the guy, but there's actual limitations to this. If her fiance is going to avail himself of some of the perks and privileges of being the spouse of a member of Congress, he should surely have to likewise comply with the less convenient parts. Absolutely, without a doubt. And as we know, and as we understand, he actually has been able to get some of the perks. So if he's getting the perks, and he's around for 10 years, for goodness sakes, and she's not bothering to file for him, I'd say that you got a lot of questions you got to be raising. I mean, and it's not like she's tip-top shape in terms of ethics. There's obviously this issue, the beggar's ball, tax the rich. all those unpaid vendors that were furious. They were threatening legal action against AOC. You got that going on. Oh, and then there was those dance lessons, right? You know, she had to learn how to salsa because she was going to get out there and stump for that Bowman guy, the one that pulled the fire alarm. Yeah, he should have gone to jail for that one. Fortunately, he did not get reelected. But, you know, she had to take the salsa lessons, and then that all came up, and it was kind of sketchy. Was she treating this as a campaign expense? Was it a taxpayer expense? Just exactly what was it? So there's a lot of murkiness, shall we say, surrounding AOC and her finances. But like I said, you know, I'm not surprised, because this is what happens, ladies and gentlemen, when you're working with socialists and communists. It all goes, government money, one big pot, right back into their pockets. She doesn't have anything right now, from what we can see. After having blown past the second deadline, she finally turned in the paperwork the other day. She doesn't have much. But again, what does the boyfriend have? The fiance, I should say. This is a problem. She's got to actually, at some point, actually make him legit, or somebody's going to come up with some kind of rule. It's important to know exactly what he's got. I'm just saying, like, these questions need to be asked. It's not right. It's not fair. It's absolutely not fair. But you know what? These people are running to a whole different tune. I mean, just consider right now, guys, what's going on with Lamonica. We're going to get to that momentarily. But first, you know, remember AOC and how she's out there instructing illegals on how they can avoid being detained by law enforcement, to the point where Tom Homan went on with Laura Ingraham at Fox and was like, I'm pretty sure that this is a violation because she is impeding law enforcement.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Congresswoman, putting out a webinar, doing a webinar to help illegals avoid, I guess, apprehension, giving tips about how to continue to remain in the country and ultimately game the system.
At what level is that impediment? Is that impediment? Is that impediment? Is that impeding our law enforcement efforts? If so, what are we going to do about it? Is she crossing the line? So maybe AOC is going to be in trouble now.
Yeah. Maybe AOC is going to be in trouble now. Well, guess what? She is in trouble. Tom Homan actually confirmed that with our friend Benny. She's being investigated for this impediment stuff.
Just one final question, Mr. Borzar, and it has to do with the region of New York and somebody who's in the news a lot lately because she's most likely planning on running for higher office. It'd be Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. AOC has come and what looks like to us crossed the line a number of times, but two very curious stories out of her office. One, as soon as you were able to regain your position as border czar, AOC had a criminal alien who was working in her congressional staff flee the country. Now, I can't quite square how that's possible. How is somebody allowed to be a criminal alien in this country and then go work in Congress where you have access to classified material and you have access to a lot of important information? Then AOC has gone on and obviously taught publicly illegal aliens how to avoid ICE. She's done this with some of her colleagues in the squad. Here's the article of the criminal alien staffer that AOC had on staff. Maybe you could just start here and as an explainer to me and to this audience, like, how's this even possible?
It's not possible, and I know that's being looked at. I can't comment on past that. I'm aware of it. We've asked ICE to drill in on that case. It's my information that there were actually. I can't really comment on it. We don't know if it was illegal status or not at this point. It looks like it might have been temporary status, but I can't comment on the case. It's under investigation. As far as her educating people how to evade ICE arrest, she's really educating them on how to be prosecuted, because there are statutes on the books, federal statute, when you knowingly hinder your removal, that's a crime. When you take steps to prevent your removal after being ordered removed by a federal judge, it's a crime. We have instructed ICE to start prosecuting these cases. If you don't want to open the door, and we have a final order removal, if you don't want to participate in getting travel documents from your home nation, you take steps to hinder your own removal, that it's a crime, you'd be prosecuted. So she can claim she's educating people to constitutional rights. I'd argue she's educating many people on how to be prosecuted. You're going to see that happening.
So he kind of gave it away right there. She'd been asking, right? Am I under investigation? Am I under investigation? And Tom Homan basically said it right then and there. Yeah, she's under investigation for a particular case with a particular employee that may not have had the proper certification to be here. So AOC's got some stuff going on. Coming up, we're going to talk about Lamonica McIver. My gosh. But first, I want to tell you about Massa Chips. Let me tell you about Massa Chips, guys. Can you see me here? Yeah, I think you can see me. There I am. You can see the chips, right? massachips.com/REGAN. Did you know all chips and fries used to be cooked in tallow up until the 1990s? Until big corporations decided to switch to cheap, processed seed oils? Well, today's seed oils make up 20% of the average American's daily calories, and recent studies have linked seed oils to metabolic health issues and inflammation in the body. So Massa decided they were going to do something about this. They decided it was time to change it, so they decided to create these tasty snacks, delicious tortilla chips with just 3 ingredients: no seed oils, no sea salt, no crazy stuff, just 100% grass-fed beef tallow. Massa. Am I saying massa? You know what? That's normally I say that's my New England accent, but my New England accent actually would say massa. So just remember that. It's massa. Massa chips, guys. These chips don't only avoid all the bad stuff, they taste really good too. They sent me some and they're delicious. I gotta tell you, they're really tasty. They're crunchy, they're tasty. They're sturdier than the other kinds of chips. So they're not going to break your guacamole. Snacking on Massa chips is nothing like eating regular chips. The Massa chips are, they kind of leave you light and energized. You don't feel as weighed down as you would by the other ones. Here is the graphic. You can actually get your Massa chips today. Use code Regan. You help the show. You help me. You help yourself. You get these tasty chips. As an added bonus, I should tell you that the beef tallow makes the chips so much more satiating. So again, you don't find yourself feeling like you're crashing, you don't feel sluggish, but you also feel satiated. So that's kind of important. So here, if you're ready to give Massa Chips a try, and you should, go to massachips.com, M-A-S-A chips, CHIPS.com/Regan, and use code Regan, REGAN, for 25% off your first offer. That's massachips.com/Regan, code Regan, REGAN, not Reagan, Regan. I'm sure we're related somewhere, for 25% off your first offer. Lamonica McIver is trying really hard to stay out of jail. But, she's facing 17 years. And so now her legal team is trying to get creative. But I'm going to tell you, I looked at this, and I'm not a lawyer, but she doesn't have a leg to stand on. And she's getting very, very political in all of this. You remember who I'm talking about, right? The lady in red, Lamonica McIver. Who can forget? Okay, we are looking at video. We are looking at video there of Lamonica McIver in that crowd of people. You can see it's really quite something to see, because she wore red, unfortunately for her, and she's being accused of being physical, having this physical altercation with these ICE agents, these federal agents. And, looking at this, seeing the hand up in the air, she's bringing it down on the officers. Oh, did you guys see that one? It's almost like she had a right hook or something. I don't know how you don't see that and don't think that she was not assaulting them. And so this is what she's facing now: 17 years in prison for the assault of a federal officer. It's a big, big deal. And so she's nervous, of course, and she's trying everything she can, and she's fundraising off of it as well. But here's her latest legal strategy. She put in a filing yesterday saying that basically DHS officials were, not supposed to be interfering with her at Delancey Hall, because this was similar to, her just doing her job. And she's actually making this really weird comparison to J6 rioters. So this is where she kind of loses me. She said this is just another case of Democrat lawmakers, or rather this is Trump himself, I think, saying this. In the filing, McIver noted numerous instances of Donald Trump's administration officials speaking fondly of J6 Capitol rioters, and contrasted those statements with how Trump officials have characterized Ms. McIver's actions. And DHS officials have asserted, of course, that this was her trying to interfere with law enforcement, and that she shouldn't have done that. She should have called and asked for an appointment rather than had this physical altercation. And Trump himself has weighed in on it. He's like, it's clear that woman was not acting as she should have, and these days are over. But her defense here, she's trying to say, well, this needs to get thrown out because he pardoned all the J6 people. And it's like, okay, what does that exactly have to do with you? Again, reminder, Lamonica McIver, unbelievable lady. I'm looking at this together with you, and I'm really struck. I'm really struck by how aggressive she was willing to be. And then the idea that somehow she doesn't think that she's supposed to be responsible for any of this right now. I mean, I don't get it. So she's saying you've got to throw this out because, they look at the pardons that the J6ers got. Two very, very different cases. I mean, first of all, the context, the severity, right? Like J6 dismissals were not blanket pardons. Many involved defendants where the DOJ thought the evidence was very weak and resources were actually better spent on bigger cases or plea deals already covered lesser conduct. McIver's case is different, certainly from a factual standpoint and from a political context. So, you can't just point to these dismissals and say, well, 1 equals 1, right? Like these are apples to oranges, and either she's got a really bad lawyer or she's just a very political person. So if you think about this unequal treatment narrative that she's going for, I don't buy it. Like, I just don't buy it. And the legal standard, by the way, doesn't buy it. I mean, the Supreme Court has a pretty high bar for this stuff. You can go back to 1996, U.S. versus Armstrong. You can go to Wadey versus U.S. in 1985. And basically, in order to succeed, the defendant is going to have to show both that there was a discriminatory effect and that there was a discriminatory purpose. And I don't think she's going to get there, because when she looks at the J6 situation, it was just incredibly different, and the standard and the application of the law is going to be very hard for her. I mean, look, you got the tape, I got the tape, we've all seen the tape, and according to DHS, they have even more tape. So this is going to be a tough row. And I think that she's going to find herself, in all seriousness, maybe not facing 17 years, but certainly facing something. They're not going to throw this indictment out, no matter how much she pleads, no matter how much she says this is, political, this is not about justice. I suspect her legal argument is going to help her in terms of the campaign fundraising. Is it going to help her in the court of law? Absolutely not. But, here she is out on MSNBC at various times asking for money while simultaneously saying, oh, I'm just a poor black woman, that's why they want me.
Is there something about you that is so threatening or scary to them?
Not that I thought. I mean, I am a young African-American woman from the city of Newark. I love serving people. I don't find myself to be intimidating or dangerous or any of those things that the Justice Department have been saying about me. It's truly unfortunate to be in this situation, but at the same time, it goes back to the political intimidation about this administration. And because I'm speaking out, because I'm doing my job, I think they want to continue to silence leaders and, stop their critics from, speaking out against them. And so they'll go to any extent, especially any extent of cruelty, to make an example. And I am that example now. And
you say to silence you, did the Trump DOJ float or push anything other than going to trial?
I mean, absolutely. The acting U.S. attorney for New Jersey wanted me to admit to something that I did not do. That was not right. That's what she put in her tweet that we saw that night.
But if you had done that, were they saying they would drop the whole thing?
Yes. Yep. That is exactly what.
So that's a lot. I mean, again, that's a lot of pressure because some people would say, "Gosh, let somebody else fight this out." You're saying the whole thing could go away if you just said something.
Correct. And I was not doing that. I was not going to waver on that. Like I said, I went to Delaney Hall with my colleagues. We went there for an oversight visit, and we didn't do anything wrong. The whole tent situation that took place, DHS and Homeland Security and ICE, they created that, not us. And so, absolutely, I was not going to do that.
Mm-hmm. She's got no legal argument here. She wants them to throw this out. I'm telling you, there's no way that they are going to throw it out. And I think she's probably looking at something. I mean, maybe they can let her out for good behavior, right? Oh my gosh. Lamonica McIver, you are getting some payback here. Don't forget, she had an opportunity, did she not? Remember when she was given the chance, and she admitted that, she was given a chance to say, okay, I did some bad stuff. I regret what I did. Let's move on. You saw the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, in fact, do that. He admitted, okay, this was not good. And he kind of worked with Alina Habba. She wasn't willing to work with Alina Habba, no way, shape, or form. And I find it curious because we were just talking about AOC, and AOC is trying, right, really, really hard to get her message out there and be united with other Democrats. And yet, where is she when it comes to Lamonica McIver? I don't see her anywhere. I don't see her standing up for her. I did see Hakeem Jeffries, right? Of course, Hakeem, he's standing up for everyone, including Lisa Cook, saying, how dare you fire the first black woman to be on the board of the Federal Reserve? What does that have to do with anything? I mean, if it's mortgage fraud, it's mortgage fraud, right? The color of your skin should not matter. You shouldn't get a free pass just because of the color of your skin. Anyway, Hakeem has talked about how Lamonica is so wonderful and out there just doing her job. Can I ask you guys again, do you really think that this is doing your job? How is this doing your job as a congressperson? I find this really pathetic and disgusting to think that they somehow are going to equate this with doing your job. That is not doing your job. That is provoking problems, like serious, serious problems. You could have gotten in line. You could have called up. You could have made an appointment. They said they were absolutely willing to let you go in there to the Delancey. But again, it comes back to, you wonder why the Democrats are struggling right now, because you got Lamonica McIver willing to, slug someone over an illegal migrant who has been arrested allegedly for some kind of crime. And she's out there fighting the good fight for them. But where is she in terms of fighting for the people of New Jersey that she's supposed to represent, the good, hardworking Americans that are just trying to make ends meet? And Lamonica, I don't think she's interested in them. And this is the perception, at least of the Democrat Party overall, which is why if you look at the New York Times this week in their analysis, you're seeing absolutely terrible numbers for the Democrats. This is why CNN is saying, the Democrat Party is garbage right now. It has gone the way of Cracker Barrel, although Cracker Barrel is having kind of a revival, if you would, because Cracker Barrel got the message pretty quick. Will the Democrats get the message as quickly as Cracker Barrel? I don't think so. So this woman is saying, how dare you, that this is a double standard. You let the people from J6 go, so I should be let go too. That's her legal argument. That is not going to fly. It just won't. I'm sorry. Lamonica, I think you might have to get used to living behind a few bars, dare I say. I mean, granted, she deserves her day in court. She will be tried for this. We will see more footage of this, but this is not going to get thrown out. There's no way that they are going to throw this out, despite her pleas, despite her tries, despite her insistence that somehow, if you threw out the J6 ones, I'm the same thing. No, you're not at all. You're just not at all. And that's going to be a very tough legal argument for you. So, Lamonica, we wish you lots of luck. Not. Remember to subscribe, share, like. We have so much to talk about because Donald Trump is, in fact, moving forward with this firing of one Lisa Cook, despite the fact that Hakeem Jeffries says you cannot fire her because she's the first black woman to ever sit on that board of Federal Reserve governors, to which everybody's like, I'm sorry, like, aren't we over the DEI stuff? Like, didn't that just end? Right? Like Harvard, they seem to be getting that message. A lot of companies seem to be getting that message. And even ABC News and Disney seems to be getting the message. Not just from Snoop Dogg, who said it on a podcast this week, oh my gosh, I took my kids to see Buzz Lightyear, and suddenly my grandkids, all of a sudden we're having these conversations I never thought we had to have, right? Like, he's even calling them out. But actually, the FCC chair, Brendan Carr, has sent 2 letters. And now ABC News is under investigation. Disney is under investigation. NBC is under investigation for their DEI policies. So I think we're done and over with DEI, which is why you can't, Hakeem Jeffries, say she gets to keep her job, even if she's guilty of mortgage fraud, just because she's the first black woman to be on the board of the Federal Reserve. No, that's not how it works. And by the way, is she guilty or is she not? I mean, I don't get it. She actually hasn't answered any questions on the mortgage fraud. I'm talking about Lisa Cook, ladies and gentlemen. Get to know her. If you haven't seen her before, there she is in all her glory. And, I got to tell you, who found an even better picture? I think it was Roger Stone. He got a real winner. We'll find that one in a second. But she's refusing to step down. All right. She's like, I'm not going anywhere, buddy. This is my job. Biden put me here and I'm staying. Well, it's a little strange because we don't know still exactly what transpired on the mortgage fraud front. I mean, we've seen the documentation. We've seen the paperwork. Here's what's out there, guys. Signatures, okay? You get a couple of signatures here. The Atlanta residents in Georgia, you get the Michigan residents, and they both seem to be primary residences. So would she explain something? Could she explain something? No, her lawyer, who by the way is Letitia James's lawyer, says she's not going to explain anything. It's just that she's not going to step down because she is doing her job just fine, and the president doesn't have the right to fire her. He disagrees. In fact, the president was very vocal over on Truth Social saying, you know what, I do have the right because it is my duty to enforce the law. Here is the letter he sent to her pursuant to my authority under Article 2 of the Constitution of the United States and the Federal Reserve Act of 1917 as amended. You are hereby removed from your position on the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve effective immediately. The Federal Reserve Act provides that you may be removed at my discretion for cause. See Section 12 U.S.C. 242. I've determined that there is sufficient cause to remove you from your position. He goes on and on and on, and then ends it with my favorite. What is it at the end? Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So Lisa Cook getting a little bit of a blow there to her. It's like clockwork. I was waiting yesterday because we talked about this story and I was like, where are they? Where are they? Where are all the Democrats? I saw one commentator who used to be on CNBC who went on to MSNBC and said, they're trying to gerrymander the Federal Reserve now. That came out, but I was still waiting. I was like, are we going to get any more? What do you guys think? And it's taken them a while, but I think they've finally pulled their ducks together. They've got their ducks in a row. Now they've decided to come out and defend one Lisa Cook. You ought to hear Paul Krugman, that Princeton economist who also writes for the New York Times and is wrong on just about everything always. Like if he says sell, you buy. If he says buy, you sell. Seriously. Wrong on the market constantly. It's actually gross and irresponsible. But Paul Krugman went on to CNN to say, there's nothing wrong with what she did. Excuse me?
It's really that she did anything wrong, but anything that's being raised pertains to, back when she was a professor at Michigan State, not at the Fed. Normally, firing for cause means that you're drinking on the job or you're stealing office supplies or something like that. It's something related to not doing the job. And there's been no hint of that. Nothing, no one has claimed, even the Trump people aren't trying to claim that she's doing a bad job at the Fed, that she's unqualified or behaving inappropriately. So this is crazy. This is, if I cheated on my third grade exam, should I be fired from my current job? This is completely insane.
Treasury Secretary Bessent commented on the move in today's cabinet meeting. Take a listen to what he had to say.
Okay. I'm sorry, but since when is it like cheating on your third grade exam? Like if there's actually mortgage fraud, how is that like cheating on your third grade exam? I mean, clearly, Krugman has a whole different set of moral code than the rest of the world. And you know what's really annoying for people? You think about how expensive homes are right now, and part of the reason they're so expensive and people are kind of trapped in them is because interest rates are so high. And so here's this woman who's helping to set the high interest rates, going out there behind the scenes and doing things allegedly to make sure that she gets a better interest rate. How is that fair? Okay, yeah, I told you Roger Stone found the rather unflattering picture of Ms. Cook, Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook is cooked. That's what I said, right? Said her home in Ann Arbor, Michigan was her principal legal residence, getting a state tax break and a lower mortgage and insurance rate. 2 weeks later, she said her home outside of Atlanta was her principal and legal residence, getting a state tax break and a lower mortgage and insurance rate. This is mortgage fraud. Okay, again, Lisa Cook hasn't said anything. Could she tell? Maybe it was an error. Okay, tell us it was an error. Maybe it was that she was moving and like there was this overlap. I'm making stuff up. I'm trying to help you, Lisa, but you haven't told us. Instead, you just get your lawyer out there saying, no, you don't have any reason to fire her. I mean, I'm with Howard on this one. If this is mortgage fraud, you better step down. We don't want you on the Federal Reserve.
But the issue is a federal government, a governor of the Federal Reserve, literally signs her name and commits mortgage fraud, right? It's alleged that she's committed mortgage fraud, and she says, I'm not going anywhere. Well, the crook always says, I'm not going anywhere. And why would anybody defend that? The real question should be, did she commit mortgage fraud, yes or no? And if you did commit mortgage fraud, please get out of the federal government, get out of the seat of the governor of the Federal Reserve, and go away. You don't deserve to be there if you've committed mortgage fraud. Right? It's right, black and white. If you've committed mortgage fraud, you shouldn't be a governor of the Federal Reserve.
Kind of seems obvious, but no. If you ask Krugman, it's just like cheating on your third grade exam, which, by the way, also isn't good. But you understand, like, you really shouldn't be an officer of the Federal Reserve helping to set interest rates if you're out there doing something funny behind the scenes. For goodness sakes, people, come on. Like, you understand, like, they have their own moral code for themselves, and then there's a moral code for everybody else, and it just doesn't fly. It doesn't sit well. Here's the CNN report on it. And just remember, these are the folks, the media, the left. What did they tell us over and over again? No one is above the law. I mean, unless, of course, you happen to be the first black woman on the board of the Federal Reserve Governors, then you get all kinds of passes.
Though, is whether what the president has at this point amounts to cause.
At issue in 2021, Cook purchased a home in Michigan, then another home in Georgia, declaring both to be her primary residence based on a CNN review of mortgage documents, potentially double dipping on financial incentives for home buyers. But analysts note she has denied wrongdoing. She was never charged. That might not be a valid cause to fire her anyway, and she may have an explanation.
She could just say she made a mistake.
However, Trump has been fuming at the Fed for months for refusing to drop interest rates to head off rising inflation.
Yeah, to head off rising inflation. So he's concerned, right? And we've done a lot. I tend to not like to have to see lower rates all the time because there's always a danger of printing money. But this is a different scenario right now. And actually the world has been changing rather rapidly. And Rob and I have written on this at 76 Research. I encourage you to go to 76research.com, get the 76 report, use code word $deal, LLAR. You can get the link in my notes. But the point is that things have changed enough that actually when the Federal Reserve is out there raising rates, the people it hurts the most are the middle class. Okay, so it's that hourglass economy effect that I talk about a lot. So the people on top, like they can manage it, right? It doesn't matter. They're paying cash for their homes anyway. The people on the bottom, well, they're not getting mortgages. So it doesn't matter to them. It's the people in the middle that are most affected by that. And what is this country other than middle class? You need a strong, vibrant middle class in order to have a successful America. I mean, look at 2/3 of GDP. Is the middle class consumer spending. So it is critical, right, that you have a thriving middle class. And here she is saying we're going to up interest rates And the irony of it is she's allegedly getting a better interest rate for herself, me, myself, and I. And that's what just doesn't fly. And yet the left, my gosh, they're going to sit there till they're blue in the face, including Elizabeth Warren, trying to say absolutely no reason to fire her. So what? You know, she just cheated on her third grade exam. Who cares if she got another mortgage rate at a sweet plum deal, even though it's fraud, even though it's illegal? Watch.
To the Justice Department, but there's been no charges. I do think there is a question of this matter of cause that the president is talking about here, and whether or not, if it's proven to be true, if that does constitute cause to fire her and remove her from a position that she's slated to hold until the end of 2038.
Look, the legal standard for cause here is failure to do her job. And so it's about inefficiency or malfeasance in office, something that is related to her job. There's case law on this from the past, and clearly that's not what's going on here. What's going on here is that one of Donald Trump's hitmen has access to data, and he's clearly trying to go through Donald Trump's perceived enemies list and see if he can dig up dirt on someone and if it might be enough to help Donald Trump seize control over the Fed. You know, look, Donald Trump has a really serious economic problem. And the economic problem he faces is not the Fed. The economic problem he faces is that he promised, think back to a year ago today, he promised over and over and over that he would lower costs for American families on day one. When he got elected, the question was, why did you get elected? And he said, because I promised to lower costs on day one. Here we are at day 220? And the cost of groceries is up, the cost of utilities is up, the cost of housing is up, the cost of school shoes is up, the cost of baby strollers is up.
Okay. Actually, cost of eggs is way down for what it's worth. In terms of cost, though, you do understand, right, Elizabeth Warren, that when the Fed lowers rates, costs actually often go up, okay, not down. So maybe she missed that little lesson in economics, but typically when the Fed is lowering rates, it means there's more money in circulation. And this is why they don't want to do it, right? Because they're concerned about inflation. And so they resist that. And so the new studies that have come out, and this is what's really fascinating, and Rob and I have written on it, 76 Research, suggests that actually it's exaggerated, that it's actually the QE, the money printing, not to get too analytical here with you, but it's the QE that they engage in and all that money printing that really, really emphasizes that inflation. But you could probably move rates a little bit lower and not have a huge inflationary effect, but rather juice the middle class economy. So what's wrong with that? Anyway, I'll tell you, they're losing it because they just cannot believe that he dared to fire the first black woman who's on the board of the Federal Reserve. They have seven governors, including Jerome Powell. You know, he has no use for Jerome either. And then this lady. But it's not like this lady is the only one who's been out there saying, hey, I'm not willing and ready to lower rates. I mean, they've all been saying that. We saw a little bit more of a dovish tone from Jerome Powell recently out at Jackson Hole. But for the most part, they've been actually in accord. I would say, look, if this is what she did, she should absolutely step down. And it may be within the president's right to fire her. The other thing you got to think about here, this fabulous game of chess, if you would, because the Trump administration is smart. And I told you they had 4 years on the sidelines to think through all of this stuff. Think about the game of chess that's going on, because he's been wanting to get rid of Powell, Jerome Powell, who's the head of the Federal Reserve. And if it turns out, because the Fed is allowing her to stay on, the Fed is saying, okay, they won't say whether or not she was in the office this morning. Maybe she's working from home. You know, it's August. They wouldn't say anything about that. But here's the deal. If Jerome says, hey, I'm going to allow Lisa Cook to stay on in her position and she's allowed to continue voting on interest rates, etc., and then the court rules, yes, the president had the power to remove her, then you might actually have a situation where you could fire Jerome Powell. You see where I'm going? For cause. That's a sophisticated game of chess. So Powell right now is letting her stay on, but if the court actually decides she's a real problem, then you could see some trouble up ahead. And, you know, to Elizabeth Warren's point, look, he does have Bill Pulte. People should not be getting secondary mortgages that are what they would call primary mortgages. I'm not even sure how the banks allow this to happen, but there's a whole bunch of them. You got Adam Schiff, right, with his primary residences in Maryland and California. You got Letitia James, primary residence in New York and Virginia, of course, her father signing as her husband. Then you got Lisa Cook, primary residences in Georgia and Michigan. I mean, this stuff is coming out to haunt all of them. And they're all acting like it's no big deal, like everybody does this. I'm sorry, not everybody does this. This is really weird. So you save a couple points, and believe me, I'm all about saving money. And you know, a compound interest thing, you put that money into a good stock fund. 76research.com. We're not a fund, actually. We just give you advice on what stocks you might want to be looking at. But you put money into the market, and that adds up over time. But you don't do it illegally, okay? You don't do it by saying, okay, I have 2 primary residences. Again, I don't even know how the banks allow this to happen. Somebody should be looking at the bank saying, what on earth? But the irony of it all, right, is that what did Letitia James use? She tried to use mortgage fraud to go after one Donald Trump. And boy, is it coming back to bite her in the you-know-what. The big you-know-what. Unbelievable stuff. I'll tell you, she deserves it, all of it. She also, interestingly, much like Lisa Cook, when she was asked, hey, what happened? What went down? She won't answer the question, remember?
I will respond to these baseless allegations at the appropriate time and in the appropriate way, but I am 100% confident that it will not result in any criminal indictment or action against me, and that it is nothing more than a revenge tour, and that Donald Trump just ultimately got to the J's, and I was next.
The key allegation, again, it sounds like you don't want to address them here, but I'm just going to put it out so people understand that a property that was owned in Virginia, a mortgage that you signed, if I'm not mistaken, for that property, that they say you falsely represented yourself as a resident of Virginia, and that was essentially amounts to mortgage fraud since you're a resident of New York. What is your response to that?
It's baseless. Everybody knows I'm a resident of New York, specifically Brooklyn. And again, we will respond at the appropriate time in the appropriate way to these baseless allegations. And some media outlets like the Daily News over the weekend has indicated as much.
Unbelievable. So in other words, she just didn't want to answer the question. Now keep in mind, she's got the same darn lawyer, Abby Lowell, who actually represented Hunter Biden too. Laptop, remember? Abby Lowell must charge a lot. She's got a $10 million slush fund, by the way, that was approved by Kathy Hochul, governor of New York, to pay Abby Lowell taxpayer money. Like, that's okay, not. So she's got Abby Lowell, and she's not saying what went down. She's not telling us. And nor is the other one, Cook, also a client of Abby Lowell. So maybe this is a strategy. You're just trying to turn it back onto Trump. I think you guys have some answering to do. I mean, for goodness sakes, even Adam Schiff tried to take this one on. He didn't have much of an answer, but they asked him about his alleged mortgage fraud on Sunday on NBC.
Adam Schiff has engaged in a sustained pattern of possible mortgage fraud. Adam Schiff said that his primary residence was in Maryland to get a cheaper mortgage and rip off America when he must live in California because he was a congressman from California. Now, the government mortgage company, Fannie Mae, says you're, quote, engaged in a sustained pattern of possible occupancy misrepresentation on several loans. Are these allegations true? How do you respond to them?
They're patently false. And the president knows it, in the housing agency, president's person, Pulte, knows it. He's essentially doing the president's bidding against me, against Letitia James, against this person on the Federal Reserve. Mortgage is their new weapon to go after their critics. But I've been very open about my residency, both in California and in Maryland, with my constituents and with the lenders. So there's no there. But the common denominator is they will manufacture anything to go after their critics, after members of Congress to try to silence them, after John Bolton, after people in the Federal Reserve, after generals, after former presidents. They're investigating Comey and Clapper, the Obamas, the Clintons. Basically, it's free reign with a corrupt leadership at the Justice Department.
Buddy, what do you think you guys did? Okay, like, he didn't start this. You guys started it. In all seriousness. I mean, you think about what you put Donald Trump through and his family through and the country through ever since he won. He beat Hillary Clinton. It was unthinkable. How could it happen? I get it. Obama's ego was bruised. Hillary's ego was certainly bruised. They had to come up with some kind of reason. So suddenly it was, the Russians stole it. The Russians took it. Otherwise, Hillary clearly would have won. Yeah, like people really liked her and wanted to go to the polls and vote for her not. So instead of just saying, okay, we got to double down and figure out where we went wrong. Maybe we're too elitist. Maybe we're too woke. Maybe we have the wrong agenda. Maybe we shouldn't care so much about making sure boys can play in girls' sports. Maybe we actually ought to care about middle-class Americans again. Instead of doing that, you guys just started opening investigation after investigation after investigation to the point where you were going to bankrupt him. That was Letitia's goals. Bankrupt him. I mean, then you think about Fani Willis and her goal. Put him behind bars. She got that mugshot, right? The mugshot that actually backfired completely, spectacularly on Fani and the Dems. Because why? Americans don't really like that. They kind of like Trump, believe it or not. Even the ones that don't like him, they find him kind of funny. He's got a good self-deprecating sense of humor, and it kind of works. And so Adam Schiff, you don't have that. Adam, I'm sorry. I know you wanted to be an actor or producer or something like that, and you wound up being a lawyer, and now you're in the Senate. But you don't have that je ne sais quoi. People don't really like you. I mean, maybe Rachel Maddow. That's not saying much, okay? So you don't have any friends. Nobody likes you. The country's not with you. And you can't figure out why it is that this guy could have possibly won. And so, yeah, he's going to come back after you with everything he's got. Why? Because you impeached him not once, not twice, but 3 times, for goodness sakes. He knows what happens. He knows what happens if the ball is back in your court, and it can't be allowed because of the things that you've done. And you know what? I'm sorry, but somebody's going to have to pay for that because we need to wipe the slate clean and start over again. We need a system that's fair for all players. You can't weaponize things like they did in the Obama administration so as to hurt one Donald Trump coming in. And this is what Tulsi's exposing. And this is what Cash Patel is exposing. It's all coming out, guys, big time. In the meantime, you know what else is coming out? That the Democrat Party doesn't really care about everyday Americans. These guys are in a major crisis. Look at what's happening. Consider their big meeting, which actually has been put on pause because of the tragedy that unfolded. And my heart goes out to everyone there in Minneapolis. Just a horrible situation. But that was going down, right? And I was watching some of the sound that was coming in thinking, you wonder why they have trouble. I mean, you look at the crime rate in DC, you look at the crime rate in LA, you look at the crime rate in Chicago, and it's bad. Like, it's really, really bad. You look at DC, and I've showed you these numbers. It's worse than parts of Africa and much of Latin America. I mean, you can go to Bogota and be safer in Colombia than you'd ever be in the likes of Washington, D.C. And yet they have these idiots in the Democrat Party that get up there in their big shindig and say things like, I'm about to show you, okay? This is unbelievable. This woman, speaking for the Democrats, doesn't seem to think that everyday Americans care about being safe. It blows my mind. Take a peek.
Issues voters care about. Where does Trump go? Migrant crime, carjackings, the really lurid, awful stuff that is a crazy, crazy visual. Don't take the bait, because most Americans are more worried about how are we going to address mental health issues, the visible homelessness that we see on streets, and how do we deal with mental health and other issues that drive the sort of random incidents that scare all of us. That's what you should be talking about. That's where you should be focused. Don't take the bait in talking about migrant crime or carjackings or the things that actually don't matter to that many Americans. And then go to the...
So she thinks that carjackings don't matter to everyday Americans. I mean, what planet do these people live on? And then they wonder why they're not winning. I think it's pretty darn simple, guys. All right, you actually have to care about basics. I mean, if there's one thing that the government should be doing, it's making sure that everybody's safe, right? That's kind of like one of the, even the most libertarian of libertarians would tell you, the government's there to try and keep you safe. All right, we don't need them for anything else, but they got to keep us safe. And if they can't keep us safe, then what the heck are they doing in government? So this is what they fundamentally don't seem to understand, because it's racist to say, okay, well, now we're gonna arrest people if they're committing a crime, because if you're, I guess, of a certain color or of a certain neighborhood or whatever, this is bonkers and it's crazy. And you look at the south side of Chicago, where they're now begging for Donald Trump's help, because they know, as well as I know, and it has nothing to do with race and everything to do with keeping people safe, so that everybody can have an opportunity to prosper. I mean, if you're unfortunate enough to be born in Watts or out in California or south side of Chicago or some parts of Baltimore, you don't have the same opportunity set because of the mere problem, and I say mere, but massive problem, of your actual physical safety being under threat at all times. I mean, for goodness sakes, if the government can't keep you safe, then what are they doing? And they get these morons like Timmy Waltz still out there saying idiotic stuff like this.
To tell you, the privilege of my lifetime was stand beside someone we know was the most qualified and would have been a fantastic president in a President Harris. And look, we wouldn't wake up every day to on TV and a bunch of nonsense. We would wake up to an adult with compassion and dignity and vision and leadership doing the work, not a man-child crying about whatever's wrong with him. May his fat ankles find something today. Petty as hell.
It's such a weird thing to say. He's just a really weird guy. We were talking about how little some of these people have. I mean, would you really want a vice president of the United States who's been making nearly $200,000 a year for however many years that he's been in Congress, and he's never saved a dime of it, to the point where he's never invested? He doesn't care about actually having a stake in anything, because he doesn't have a stake in anything. I don't buy that. I don't like this guy. I really fundamentally just don't like. You know what? That's interesting, right? I don't like him. I didn't like Hillary Clinton. I didn't like Kamala Harris. And I think likability matters. And they forget this all the time. They don't have anybody in their cast of characters. And by the way, the Republican Party didn't either. That's why I said all along, if Donald Trump wanted that nomination for the Republican Party, he was going to get it. Because there was no one that could compete with the likability factor. Okay, so that je ne sais quoi that you can't quite name, but he's got it. Star quality, star factor, whatever. Hopefully you're here and we're getting towards 1 million on the Trish Regan Show, because you find a little bit of that in me, right? It's what you want from your television personality. And by the way, yeah, I guess from your politicians. I would say this about him. Not only does he have that, in real life, he genuinely likes people. He actually really likes people and enjoys talking to people. I don't think Hillary Clinton does. I don't think Kamala Harris does. I don't really think Obama does. I'm going to be generous. I think Bill Clinton did. Especially if he looked like Monica Lewinsky. Not my type. Even if I was a guy, definitely not my type. But hey, for every Jack, there's a Jill. And for Clinton, there were a lot of Jills, apparently. We know that. I don't have to say allegedly. Anyway, the point being, they don't know how at this point, because they've gotten so entrenched in their own wokeness. And as a result, you know what CNN is saying. But for fun, let's watch it again.
Look, the Democratic brand right now has about the appeal with the American voter as the Cracker Barrel rebrand has with the American consumers. Bad, bad, bad. What are you doing? Oh, my goodness gracious. What are we talking about here in terms of big party registration changes in the key swing states? Let's look at the key 4 swing states that, in fact, do keep track of registration by party. Look, the Republican Party is in their best position at this point in the cycle since at least 2005, in all 4 of these key battleground states. We go out to the Southwest, Arizona. How about Nevada? Republicans haven't done this well since 2005. Oh my goodness gracious, at this point in the cycle. North Carolina, I couldn't find a point at which Republicans were doing better at this point in the cycle. It's at least this century. It probably goes way back in the last century. And Pennsylvania, very similar. Republicans doing better at this point than at any point at any point this century, at least as far as I could find. Now, what types of gains are we talking about here for the Republican Party? Well, let's compare it to this point during the first Trump administration all the way back in 2017. Look at this. The Republican Party gains in party registration compared to this point back in 2017 during the Trump first administration. In Arizona, you got a Republican gain of 3 points. Okay, how about Nevada? Up the hill we go, even though we're sticking in the Southwest, a gain of 6 points. How about, again, we come to the East Coast, North Carolina, a gain of 8 points for the Republicans. And in the Keystone State, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, again, we're talking about a gain of 8 points. My goodness gracious, for Republicans, they are converting old former Democrats to their side of the ledger, as well as picking up new voters, registering new voters, and it absolutely paid off for them back in the 2024 election.
You know, I actually think he's the best guy that CNN has now. And it's not just because I like the news that he's delivering, which is obviously very good for the Republican Party, but it's because I actually think he's got that pizzazz that we were just talking about. Like, he's excited about what he does. And he's like, oh my gosh, like, we haven't seen this in a century. Oh my goodness gracious. He's got some star quality. And they don't have a lot of that on CNN. I will take him any day of the week over Anderson Cooper or Jake Tapper with the terrible voice. Talks like a frog, right? Like, that guy's got spunk and personality. You know what? He's delivering truth. Like, I don't know what to think. Like, was he even able to show his face the next day in the newsroom? Well, I know he was, because actually 2 weeks ago, he started going on about how the Democrat brand was total garbage. It was in the basement. It was garbage. And now he doubles down with this. Anyway, they don't like reality. And reality right now is not good. When you look at some of these crime numbers, especially in these blue cities, and who points this out? Clearly the president, and also Stephen Miller. So they try and attack Stephen Miller as much as they can, because Stephen is kind of like all this, right? Like, he's in overdrive all the time. Donald Trump knows how to pull back. He knows how to go full force. He knows how to then pull back again. He knows how to show multiple sides of his personality. He shows his empathy. He shows his humor. And he shows his strength. Stephen, I love. He's brilliant, but he's like this, right? He's like this, and he's passionate, and he's determined. And he said something on Fox the other night that got everybody all worked up, because he was talking about migration and criminals and everybody's and so they started playing the soundbite on CNN. And now people are saying, gosh, you know, Stephen Miller may have a libel suit against CNN, because this woman who used to work at MSNBC, I don't know her name, forgive me, but she's, you know, kind of a day player, makes her rounds. Now she's on CNN occasionally. And she said some pretty atrocious stuff about him. I mean, I think he might be able to say, this is kind of a libelous thing for you to say. It's a very bad place that they go, but they always call someone racist if they don't agree with them. And I'm telling you, the country's over it. Chicago's over it. But listen to this lady.
Really quickly, Abby, because anytime that we play something from Stephen Miller, it would be journalistic integrity to point out that he is a white supremacist and he is the brainchild behind this policy. That's not my opinion. That's actual facts. And for him to purport lies from the Oval Office.
So we think that that's a bit of a problem, right, for CNN, and not just CNN. And by the way, by all means, you know what, Stephen, have at it, because I think that that's effectively libel. I mean, you say things like that about people. I'm tired of that. You know, I am so sick and tired of that's the place that they go to, because where do you go? You're on your heels. They've just called you a despicable thing, and you say, no, I'm not. I mean, how do you recover from that? That is a horrible thing to say. And what does she say that on? What is that based on, guys? I mean, that is just flat out disgusting talk, and that's got to stop. Like, we have to have a level of civility again. That's what's been lost. They just go punch at him, whether it's Donald Trump or whether it's Stephen Miller or anybody, right, that's MAGA, because if you're MAGA, you're this, that, and the other. I don't even want to say the words, but you know what they say. And that has to stop. And believe me, it's about to, because I think that more and more people, just look at the new numbers out of the New York Times. They ran an analysis. A majority of the new Americans that are coming in as first-time voters, guess who they're registering to vote as? Republicans. Okay, so everything's going red. Everything's going MAGA. Men overwhelmingly have moved. I mean, it's really not a surprise, right? You tell white men they are the worst thing ever. Men in general are the worst thing ever because, by the way, a lot of black men as well are like, I don't want anything to do with the Democrat Party now, given where it's heading and what it's saying and what it now represents. And so this is massive. And you're seeing it play out real time right now in Chicago. Because the people in Chicago are like, please, Donald Trump, please come help. Please bring in the National Guard. Do whatever you can. And then you get this Brandon Johnson, who, by the way, can't balance a budget, wants more money for everything, believes that he needs to hire only black people because black people are better. Blah, blah. I mean, these are his words, not mine. This is what he has actually come out and said. We've got it on tape. I played some of it for you yesterday. For goodness sakes, this guy is a problem, a huge problem. And yet there he is out in Chicago saying, no way, no how are we going to have Donald Trump coming in here with the National Guard? Well, Donald Trump says, watch out. We may just be there. Chicago's next on his list. This issue came up in California, you'll recall. Gavin Newsom was like, get out of town. And guess what? The Ninth Circuit Court made the decision that indeed the National Guard could come in during those riots in California. Listen to Donald Trump musing about Chicago being next.
Where on earth? So, I really am honored that the National Guard has done such an incredible job working with the police. And we haven't had to bring in the regular military, which we're willing to do. We have to. And after we do this, we'll go to another location and we'll make it safe also. We're going to make our country very safe. We're going to make our cities very, very safe. Chicago's a mess. You have an incompetent mayor, grossly incompetent. And we'll straighten that one out probably next. That'll be our next one after this. And it won't even be tough. And the people in Chicago, Mr. Vice President, are screaming for us to come. They're wearing red hats, just like this one. But they're wearing red hats. African-American ladies, beautiful ladies, are saying, please, President Trump, come to Chicago. Please. I did great with the black vote, as you know, and they want something to happen. So I think Chicago will be our next, and then we'll help with New York, and we're going to help with...
Yeah. You know what, they are saying that. And the reason they're saying that, guys, the reason they're saying that is because it's gotten that bad. And they need the help. And they can't rely on their leaders like Brandon Johnson to actually do anything because he's not doing anything. He's squandering their money. I've shown you in my shorts clips some of it's amazing. People are so frustrated with this guy. They've had it with him. And now, yes, they are begging for help. Here's a clip courtesy of News Nation.
Our children can't walk around the community without fear of being hurt or kidnapped or having a drive-by. So it's what these numbers that they're expressing, we don't feel it in our quality of life.
Yeah, they're trying to say, you know what, it's not a big deal. You must be imagining this, right? That they tried to say the same thing, by the way, in D.C., that the numbers in terms of homicides and stuff that they were going down. And people are like, yeah, it doesn't really feel that way because it doesn't feel so safe here in the city of DC. And you had members of the media even coming out and saying that. And now Chicago, similar thing. But one of the concerns is that they've been massaging these numbers. And so they've been trying to make them look better. Anecdotally, I've certainly heard that in New York from people that work in the police force. And then you have the police union chief in DC saying this, that they were discouraged from reporting certain things because they wanted these numbers to look better. So the people of Chicago have kind of had it. And this one guy, I want to show you a clip from a recent meeting where somebody stood up and they said to Brandon Johnson, hey buddy, look at me. You won't even look at me, Mayor Johnson. What the heck is going on? We're not in a good position here. You got to do something about it. And now apparently Donald Trump is willing. The very woke mayor in Chicago that wants to stand in the way of any DHS efforts got a little bit of a scolding by one of his constituents because he wouldn't even look at the guy.
I am speaking right now, so I would love your undivided attention, please. I'll wait.
And wait.
So this just proves to you the lack of leadership that you show in this city. You can't even give me straight eye contact. Now, I'm going to let you know now, the people of Chicago, we're done with you. It is insane how we have been voting Democrat for over 60 plus years, and we've never seen a change from people like you, Lori Lightfoot, Rob Emanuel. It is insane. Chicago was 37% red. In 2020, it was only 15%. So we're waking up. So you can pretend that this isn't happening, but I know for a fact that you will not have that seat the next election.
Boom! Did you hear that? Mayor Johnson, they don't like you. You're going to be out. Yeah, you will. They really don't like you in Chicago right now. And it's fascinating because people would have never thought that you would have gotten this vote or that you could get this vote. And the black vote had gotten locked up by the left. And the reality is, I think so many hardworking black Americans are saying, hang on. You know, they promised us this, that, and the other, and none of it's happened. And you can go back to sort of Johnson, right? Lyndon Johnson, when they put in a lot of programs that actually hindered black Americans instead of helping them. And we've seen a deterioration, for example, in the family unit as a result of that. And if you had the left in charge, that would have continued. Think about Black Lives Matter. They used to have on their website, as one of their tenets there, one of their big beliefs was the destruction of the nuclear family. They wanted to get rid of the nuclear family. Like, how does that help you guys? I don't know. Like, it really doesn't. Like, being a nuclear family is actually incredibly important to putting people in a better position because, you know what, then you got two instead of one, all right? And when you have kids, believe me, you need all the help you can get, okay? So having two parents in a household is a big deal, and yet they wanted to destroy this. And I think Chicago has gotten to the point where they realize that this guy I'm about to show you is a total freaking fraud.
As the mayor of this city, I can tell you that Chicagoans are not calling for a military occupation. They are calling for the same thing that we've been calling for some time, and that's investment. What safe cities across America all have in common, they invest in people, and that's what we're doing in Chicago. We need the federal resources to make sure that we're building more affordable housing, expanding mental and behavioral health care, education, all of these things that could reduce crime and provide real community safety. Instead of spending hundreds of millions of dollars for a publicity stunt to invoke chaos and terror, the federal government should spend that money on proven solutions to crime and violence reduction. We cannot incarcerate our way out of violence. We've already tried that, and we've ended up with the largest prison population in the world without solving the problems of crime and violence. The addiction on jails and incarceration in this country, we have moved past that. It is racist, it is immoral, it is unholy, and it is not the way to drive violence down. We cannot return to the same failed strategies that got us here in the first place. Under the previous presidential administration, we requested more federal resources to address gun violence in our city. We continue to make that same call. We have made significant progress on our own, but there is so much more that we can do if we had real support from the federal government.
If we had real support from the federal government. In other words, he just wants a handout, but he doesn't want to actually be responsible for anything, right? He doesn't actually want to ensure that crime rates are going down. He doesn't want more police. I mean, you're talking about a group of people that was all about defund the police. I will never get that. I just never, again, what do you think government's there for? As for the immigration stuff, hello, people. I mean, this is kind of a basic thing that the federal government absolutely has the right to control. They don't have a lot of ability to do a whole lot of things, you know, and I'm a small government kind of live free or die gal, but I mean, for goodness sakes, whether it's the Commerce Clause or the Supremacy Clause or there's a Naturalization Clause. I mean, they got a lot of clauses in the Constitution. And yes, they have control over whether somebody can be in this country or not. And when you get to such a state of lawlessness, like you've seen in the likes of LA, in San Francisco, just walk those streets, my gosh, or Chicago or DC, you know, that might be an opportunity then for the national government to come in and say, okay, we need to do better. How can we do better? How can we help these places? Why won't they take the help? Look at what's going on in Boston with Michelle Wu. Again, the Democrat Party is putting themselves in this position because they're out there fighting for people who are here illegally, who may have committed crimes, you know, Lamonica literally out there fighting for them instead of fighting for the actual people that were born and raised here in America. I want to get to another story right now, but first I want to answer a couple of quick comments. Wait for the same people that I'm just looking at. One of you guys, thank you for the generosity, but I will tell you, I want to do the gifted memberships. It's kind of complicated, but apparently because I am a quote unquote brand account, we're getting into YouTube nonsense right now, as opposed to a personal account, because I have other members of the team that need access to the account to post and stuff like that. So as a result of that, I can't do those just yet. YouTube says they're trying to roll them out. So I'll stay on it and you stay on it and we'll figure out when that can happen. But thank you again. Much appreciate, of course, the generosity. You guys are really terrific. And the same people that want to put Trump in jail, Bearded Gaming is saying, want to now put people, is saying that putting people in jail is racist. Right. I mean, it's the same exact people, right? Like there's a completely double standard. You're absolutely totally right. And this double standard is one of their biggest problems. I'm telling you, biggest problems. Quick shout out to one of our great sponsors here on the Trish Regan Show. You know how much we love our sponsors and we depend on our sponsors because they are the ones that help make this all possible. Balance in Nature is one of them, and we have a special deal right now with Balance in Nature where you can get 35% off. 35% off. Go to balanceofnature.com. Make sure you use my code word. Make sure you use code word TRISH because this is good stuff. I'll tell you, there are times when, do you ever look at your supplement bottles and say what's in it? And you flip it over and you look at the back and you don't understand the ingredients. Well, look, if I can't pronounce this stuff, I don't want to be taking it. Period. End of story. And that's why I like Balance in Nature. I mean, every single ingredient in their fruits and veggies supplements is exactly what it sounds like. It's whole foods, it's whole vegetables. So you don't have to deal with the binders and the fillers and the artificial colors. You're just getting real whole food. Gluten-free, vegan-friendly, picked at peak ripeness. They actually take this and they gently vacuum, cold dry them into fine powder. They get 31 different fruits and veggies. They harvest them, as I said, then they vacuum, cold dry them into a fine powder to lock in all that nutrition. It's like getting a huge platter of produce, if you would, every single day without actually having to do the grocery shopping and all the cooking and all the chopping and you know what. So right now, go to balanceofnature.com. Use my discount code TRISH. You're going to get 35% off plus a free bottle of fiber and spice. That's on top of free shipping. Again, balanceofnature.com. Use my discount code TRISH, TRISH, and take control of your nutrition naturally. Right? Big news out of NBC, possibly. This is an interesting one. Donald Trump is calling for NBC to fire late night host Seth Meyers. Do you know who he is? I mean, he doesn't actually have a show that's tremendously popular, but I can tell you he's kind of a mean guy. I actually ran into a little incident with him back when I worked at Fox, and I dared to question why we're having a shutdown of the whole country. Just because CNN was out there like it was the lost plane with COVID. And by the way, these were early days and we didn't know a lot. But I'll tell you, when I see the market tanking 2,000 points because everybody's watching CNN, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, you really got to be kidding me because there's a way to approach this crisis in a normal way, right? That's not going to cause so much pain and suffering. But this guy decided to go after me because of it. So when I say that this story kind of actually makes me a little bit happy to see, I'm not kidding. It also makes me happy because I believe he's from New Hampshire. And according to my aunt, if we can believe her, so we'll say this is alleged, okay? According to my aunt, he used to hang out with my cousin. And she caught them drinking underage in her basement. Allegedly. She'd tell you, okay? So we're talking about this guy, Seth Meyers. Bad news. Kind of a wimpy little sappy pain in the you-know-what. So back when I worked at Fox, I had a hair and makeup team. And my hair was really kind of large this one particular night. Then I went on and did this commentary. I remember actually being in the dressing room and trying to comb it down because it was a new hairdresser who I'm like, wow, I'd never seen so much teasing in my life. I had it was 5 inches off my head. But this little turd had to make a whole big thing of it. So the next thing you know, I'm on this particular show and he's making fun of me and my hair, which, I will say was, in fairness, a little dynasty-like. I did kind of laugh at that. But bottom line, like, he was trying to get me fired. He really was. Like, that was his goal. And and it wasn't me personally. Let's be clear. It was anybody at Fox. Like, they're out for blood. They want to take down any conservative that they can. And this was their MO. And he is a very liberal, very anti-Trump host. Now, I'm not sure why, unless maybe he knew the handwriting was on the wall. He had already made his bed. And so, once Trump were to win, that would mean the end of his career. And perhaps it is. So let me read to you what Donald Trump is saying here. There's a sick rumor going around that fake news NBC extended the contract of one of their least talented, I'd agree with that, late night television hosts out there, Seth Meyers. He has no ratings, no talent, no intelligence, no personality. Oh, he has the personality of an insecure child. Exactly. That's exactly what I was trying to say. When I say he was kind of sappy, kind of wimpy, kind of annoying. That's what it is. He's like a really insecure child. So why would fake news NBC extend this dope's contract? Don't know, but I'll definitely be finding out. Good. Like, this made my day. I can't wait to see him go bye-bye. I wonder if his show is losing $50 million, much like Stephen Colbert was losing. These shows are too bloated. They have these massive budgets with zillions of producers, and they get people that actually write this idiot script all the time. And not just script, his jokes. Yeah. There's no originality. There's no transparency. There's no authenticity. He's reading a prompter. That's all he's good at. To read a prompter and to criticize Donald Trump and anybody who might actually like Donald Trump. They're fodder for him. So, okay, the tables have turned. I'm sorry, buddy, you're on the wrong side of this equation. You made your bed, right? You are going to lay in it. And if I'm Comcast, which is now owning NBC, I've made the decision to get rid of Versant, MSNBC. They're not even going to keep the name anymore, right? It's MS now or whatever ridiculous thing they're calling it. It's gone. I've made a decision. I want to separate myself from the sewer, right? All the people that go on and on and on, crazy rabbit holes that we had to go down thanks to a rather talented, actually, she's more talented than him, Rachel Maddow. More compelling to watch than him, for sure. So if you're trying to distance yourself from Rachel Maddow and the guy who looks just like her, Chris Hayes, and Morning Joe, etc., then why are you keeping this one? Why would you keep Seth Meyers ever? He's just costing you a ton of money. He's not getting any ratings, and he's going to make your life a living HELL. And I'm not saying, believe me, that the president should have any say over this, but he's got a point after a while. When you are constantly polluting the airwaves with one viewpoint and one viewpoint only, it gets a little nauseating. I get it if you're cable, right? If you're cable and you're Fox and you have a viewpoint, great. If you're MSNBC, no one's watching you, but great, you can go have your viewpoint. You're not governed by the FCC. The NBC channel, the network, however, is. NBC has to answer to the FCC. And if the FCC is looking at this and saying, you guys are just putting garbage on the air all the time and nobody trusts you, the American people no longer trust the airwaves, then they're going to have a leg to stand on. And so mark my words, I will not be surprised if NBC negotiates some kind of settlement with this one to get him out of the way. Again, I'm reading you what Donald Trump put out earlier today on Truth Social, writing that there's a sick rumor going around in the fake news that NBC has extended the contract of one of the least talented late night television hosts out there, Seth Meyers. Now, this is interesting because I'm going to tell you, in the television business, sometimes this happens. Like an agent might decide to put a rumor out there, oh, we're in contract negotiations, et cetera. And they might do this for a variety of reasons. Maybe they're trying to talk to somebody else. Maybe somebody else wants them to think that Seth Meyers is locked in. I don't know, but somebody's putting this out for a reason. And Donald Trump got wind of it. And, he doesn't have a whole lot of use for Brian Roberts, who's the head of Comcast anyway. And, he's running with it. He's running with it in a pretty significant way, to which I just kind of sit back and laugh. And given my own personal experience with this guy, kind of enjoy it. Yeah, all right. There is a mean side to me too. Little did you know, right? I'm not all as sweet as I look. But this guy is a one-note pony. And he's done nothing but criticize Donald Trump and anybody who supported Donald Trump for what? We're going on how many years? 10 years? Because you go back to 2015, 2016. So it gets a little old. The ratings are tired. And again, if I'm NBC, what is my goal right now? To kind of keep it clean. Okay, to focus on Peacock, to focus on sports, to focus on network television news that's going to be even and balanced, if they can ever possibly get there, because 92% of the news right now is all slanted against Donald Trump. That would be my goal. So do I need a late night comedian stirring it up the way this guy is, in a way that does not help me, 1, with ratings, 2, with the president, or 3, with advertisers? No, I don't need it. Right? Gone, done, finito. That's not a hard decision to make if you're Brian Roberts at Comcast, which owns NBC. Again, think of this spinoff. Why are they doing this spinoff? Well, a couple of things. 1, the industry has changed massively. The fact that I can sit here right now and do this. Fortunately, the camera hasn't gone down. We should knock on wood yet, right? The fact that I can do this is tremendous. And it's not lost on me. It blows me away every single day, because I think about all those times when I'd work at network news, NBC News including, and I'd have to have a live truck, and it would cost thousands and thousands of dollars to have these live trucks, and zillions of cameramen and somebody lighting and somebody to do your microphone, the whole kit and caboodle, plus a team of 5 producers and an editor and this, that, and the other. And now all of a sudden, I can do this with you. Face to face, sort of, right? I can read your comments in real time, so that's real feedback. It's a whole different medium. So this is a changing landscape for media in general. So NBC has to deal with that. So yes, they're going to spin off these cable units because, look, it's hard to make money in them. We see, I don't know if Fox managed to renew its deal with YouTube, but a lot of these cable companies cannot even be on these platforms and make money because they are being paid by whoever, by the provider. So in other words, forgive me, the cable companies themselves, so the news companies, the cable news units, they can't actually make money via streaming, etc., because they have to make all of their money from the cable providers that pay them however many dollars per household. So think about how all that's changing, because there's a whole new way to do it. And people are like, I don't need to sit there and watch MSNBC or NBC News for that matter anymore. I can go see Trish Regan or whoever, right? Benny over here on YouTube. And there's a whole different perspective and a different kind of energy and a different kind of authenticity. And so Americans have realized that. And they're going direct. So content still matters in this environment, right? Content is king. Content will always be king. But how it's distributed has changed dramatically, because you now have a position and a voice. Reminder, subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. Make sure you subscribe. We're live every day. But this guy, he's part of the old media system now. And he's got everything stacked against him, in addition to being a highly political show when it's just supposed to be an entertainment, joke-style show. But he's not that funny, so he has to resort to politics. So he's completely changed the genre of what he's trying to do. And he's alienated a lot of people, including yours truly, in the process. And I think his days are numbered. I don't think they're going to renew him. And I think Donald Trump will have had a hand in it. And you know what? So be it. What do they say? History is written by the victors. It's great to have you guys here. Make sure you go over and you check out 76 Research, my company that I started with my dear friend Rob. I'm just looking at some of the NVIDIA stuff that's been coming out. It beats on the top and bottom lines. Data center revenue surging 56%, beating on earnings and revenue for the quarter, and issued guidance for the current period that topped estimates. Data center revenue soaring 56% from a year earlier to $41.1 billion, accounting for 88% of sales. This is interesting. The China stuff, watch this, and we can talk more about this tomorrow. NVIDIA said there were no sales of H2O processors to China-based customers in the period, but the company did benefit from the release of $180 million worth of inventory to a client outside of China. So NVIDIA is just an amazing company. It's just done tremendously well. I saw Don Baca talking about it in the show earlier, and we did see shares fall in some of the extended trading. In fact, it's down 2.3% right now. But, that's neither here nor there. It's down 2%. I think we can handle it. Go to 76 Research. Use code word dollar. Please do that for me because I want to help you. I mean, you got to be thinking about, even if it's just $10 a week, whatever you can afford. You want to be in there and out there. Yeah, I see what you're saying, Don. NVIDIA data center. Listen, I hope that I hope for all of us, right, that NVIDIA is able to be a success because it's become such an important part of the economy. Peace of My Mind is asking about Travis and Taylor. That's funny you ask. I so don't care. Do you care? I mean, the only thing I think is maybe it's a sign in the times. Well, for one thing, she's 35, right? So, she's pushing up on a time clock there. So 35 might be kind of a good time to settle down. What I hope is that more women are encouraged to find the love of their life. Hopefully he is the love of her life. And start a family and have all of the things that make us happy, right? So I wish her very, very well. I think she kind of took a long time to get there. And I get it, it's hard, like meeting the right person. I may have told you guys this before, but I would say this. In life, right? Finding your mate, finding the right person for you is probably the hardest thing ever. You can't pick your family, but you can pick your spouse. And so you need to pick the right spouse that you can grow with. And hopefully Taylor Swift did that. Somebody sent me something earlier saying, her prenup is going to be kind of long, right? And somebody, I think I saw a tweet that said, Travis Kelce is going to have to read that prenup, and it's going to be longer than perhaps any book he's ever had to read. And I got a kick out of that. But I wish them well. I'm very happy for them. And peace of my mind, I don't know. I don't really care tremendously other than that, I guess. It's good. It's good for the world that people are getting married. I'll tell you, there's an economic argument to the whole marriage thing too, from the country's perspective. You guys are with me, right? You're like, I don't really care. I'm a Buffalo Bills fan anyway, peace of my mind, so I don't know about the Chiefs. Listen, my husband's from Buffalo, except when it's Patriots, and this is a dicey time, right? Because, I grew up in New England, so we kind of like the Patriots there, but, when it was the Chiefs versus the Bills, I didn't have a choice. I'm all Bills, but anyway, great to have you all here. It's really good to see everybody. I see so many familiar faces, and listen, we are gonna get there. We are gonna get there to 1 million. I don't know when, but I think it's soon because we're approaching 950,000. So please join me in this ride. I appreciate everything you guys do, and I'll see you here live again on the Trish Regan Show tomorrow.